COBOL tips and code open. Type listing program. Checkcon. Hi everybody, this PPT was made by Nestor ACHA. The notes will be read by the automatic voice of Word Office. Thank you very much for being interested in seeing it. Introduction. Before we start learning COBOL, we need to have an accessible environment in which we can compile and test our programs. We are using OPENCOBOLIDE. On the web you can find many videos that will guide you in the installation. Considered correctly installed when the Hello World demo program has already been successfully executed. You can return to this video when you have it installed OPENCOBOLIDE. Management of files. To work at COBOL, we consider file management very important. When we refer to a file, we need to know its structure, which we define in an Excel, indicating the following characteristics of each field or data contained in the file. Name. It is recommended that it be mnemonic and prefixed, for example INP code. Tells us which is the code field of the INP file. Initial position indicates the position in which the data begins. Length tells us how much the data measures. Type, whether numeric, alphanumeric, or otherwise. Decimals, number of decimals, only if the field is numeric. Sign, only if it is numeric. The design of our input file called file input. File input design. Filler is usually put to fields that are not used, but that are reserved for future extensions. It is also usually initialized with spaces. Our test file is located in the path c:/opencobolide/file-inp.txt. We have put an asterisk character in the last position of the record only for didactic purposes, to indicate that there the record ends. We recommend putting a guide rule to create data with Notepad in a txt file. In the last slide is the link to download the PPT, and from the source itself, you can copy the necessary code, and then compile and test it, in the way indicated in the demo.
Result of execution.
Here we show the result of the execution. You must obtain the same values. Additionally, you can add employee records in the file input file, and all should be displayed. As it is a subject of study, we recommend trying only with 5 employees. Explaining the program. Please focus only on the program we are studying. Try to master this pattern of listing program, which with some small changes can serve you for many real-life processes.
Identification and data areas.
Identification division. Mandatory. Program ID, CCON0001. Mandatory program name. Asterisk author. NOM. Advisable, author name. Asterisk remarks. COBOL listing program. Advisable, what the program does. Environment division. Mandatory. Input-output section. Required if it use files. File control. Required if it use files. Select file input assigned to c:/opencobolide/file-input.txt. Lined sequential. File status is FS input. Select mandatory to indicate identification data and location of the file to use. File input, name of the file within the program. Assign TO, mandatory. C:\/OpenCOBOLIDE /file-input.txt, name and root where it is located the file. Line is sequential, mandatory for the listing pattern. File status is mandatory for the listing pattern. FS input, mandatory for all files, must exist in working storage section.
Identificaste ng data areas.
Data division. Mandatory. File section. Required if it use files. FD file input. Required if it use files. 01 IMP record. Mandatory definition of the structure of the file. Program work area. Every listing program has classic fields of work. Working storage section. Mandatory. It is advisable to underline sections and paragraphs. 01 WE-vars. It is advisable to group work variables at level 01. 03 WE date pick X 08. System date. 03 WE time pick X 06. System time. 03 WS end input pick X 01 value N. End of data. 03 FS input pick X 02. File status. 03 out salary pick Z ZZZ ZZ 9.99. Editing picture. 03 WE tot salary pick 908 V99 value 0. Numeric with 2 decimal places. 03 WE rec code pick 901 value 0. Rec code for control of the flow.
Program logic area.
Start process. Mandatory. Display start program CCON 0001 mandatory. Asterisk obtain the system date and time. Accept WE date from date. Mandatory. Accept WE time from time. Mandatory. Asterisk open files. Open input file input. Mandatory. Asterisk validate open file OK. If FS input not equals 2000 foot mandatory. Asterisk read first record of the file. Perform read input. Very important to read the first record. Asterisk print title if is required. Display codename salary. Mandatory.
Display. Mandatory. Program logic area.
Route process. Mandatory employee process. Perform read input. Very important to read at the end of the process paragraph. END process. Mandatory. Display total employees, WETOT employees. Required to show totals. Display end program CCON 0001 mandatory. Close file input. Very important to close files. If FS input not equals 2000 foot mandatory.
Program logic area.
Read input. Mandatory. Read file input at end move S to WSEND input. Mandatory. If FS input not equals 2000 foot and WS end not equals S mandatory. End program CCON 0001. Advisable. Theory applied to this type listing program. It is opportune to review an interesting theory that tells us the following. Every listing program runs a startup process once and once. Every listing program runs the record process n times, with n being the number of records in the file. Every listing program executes an end process once and only once. I will not mention the divisions and sections of a COBOL program. This can be studied or reviewed in many videos on the web. I would call this video learning and doing, although I will try to explain what you will need to program productively. We will study the three main processes of a type listing program: beginning, process, and end. Theory applied to the this type listing program. In the start process of a listing program, the following must be done. 1. Get the date and time of the system. 2. Open the files. 3. Validate that they opened well. 4. Read the first record of the file. 5. Write the first title if required. In the record process, the following must be done. 1. Move the fields of the read record to the exit. 2. Write the data to the output. 3. Accumulate 1 to the record counter. 4. Read the next record of the file. In the END process, the following must be done. 1. Write the listing totals. 2. Write the control totals. 3. Close the files. 4. Validate that they closed the files well. 5. Finish the program with stop run. The latest. An expert COBOL programmer has programmed schemes that he will reuse according to the situation, but what must always be maintained on good practices such as underline paragraphs, a good indentation to align verbs and words, pick from, to, value. Use preset field names with W if they are working, with R if they are report, with T if they are tables or totals, with F if they are files. Use only letters, numbers, and hyphens in names. Use a lot of commentary helping to understand who is going to read our program. All these recommendations can be searched on the web and should be of additional use to the standards of the facility you are working on. Thank you very much for your attention and good luck.